Hello and welcome to Jurrnee's series of interesting and hopefully fascinating insights into Hotel Tech Anatomy 101. Today is episode 1, chapter 1, the very first episode on revenue management. The price is right, or is it? And today I'm joined with some fantastic panelists here, which I'll read from left to right as I see them on my screen. We have Alexander Edstrom from Atomize, also pronounced Atomize if you're in Italy. And I've got Fulvio Giannetti from Lybra, Jason Pinto from Pace. Sorry, I almost said a different word then. Neville Isaac from Beonprice or BOP, Marvin Spags from RoomPriceGenie or RPG. In the background, Trevor Grant and Jen Nagy. Thank you so much for hooking us up. Now, I've got a little assistant here, my 1-minute egg timer. You each have 1 minute to introduce yourselves, but starting with you, if I could, Alexander, just 1 minute about yourself per se, you specifically.
Me specifically, thank you so much. So my name is Alexander Edstrom. I'm the CEO of Atomize. We are located with our headquarters in Sweden, in Gothenburg on the West Coast. We provide a revenue management system, as all of us do here, right? So really looking forward to this topic.
Perfect. And maybe something about you, what you like, what you don't like, what annoys you?
Well, I like, when you're a family father of 4 kids, or wildlings, as you say, sometimes, that's occupying you to the extent that you have, that needs to be a hobby, right? When you don't work. So it keeps me occupied when I don't work.
And the age range, if I could ask you, from the 4 children?
Yeah, so it starts with the 19-year-old daughter, and then Alicia, and then I have a 9-year-old daughter called Isolde, and a 7-year-old daughter called Ottilia, and a 5-year-old son called Ossian.
Fantastic.
It's a wide range.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Alex. Fulvio, please give us 1 minute about yourself specifically. We know Lybra Tech is an RMS and you're in Rome, but tell us a little bit about yourself. I know a little bit in the sense that we worked together for 3 years and that we both like to wash dishes by hand. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I like wash dishes one by one. It's very relaxing for me and also for my wife, I think. Also. Yeah, but now it's more difficult because as you know, we added a new entry into the family.
Congratulations.
The last 6 months, so now we have a new baby, so there are more things to wash. And I need the help. I cannot be.
Absolutely. And what about music? What type of music do you?
I don't like music too.
Okay, this is where we differ for sure. I'm a big music fan, but thank you very much, Fulvio. And then Jason, please, I know a lot about you, but feel free to share anything about you that you think would be nice to know about.
Thank you, Eric. First of all, thanks to you and the Revenue Hub team for putting this together and inviting me along. Really appreciate that. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Pace Revenue, the company that apparently Eric forgot the name of momentarily, but we'll make sure that none of you forget that name.
I almost said that's why I stopped myself.
It's on our contract, so you're allowed, but we have built a revenue operating system for the hospitality space. And I guess importantly, we went through a very important transition a few months ago where we became part of the Flyer group. So Flyer is a US headquartered company, and together we're all in this Flyer family that's in the top 5 in terms of scale of hospitality and travel technology companies globally. So we have quite a bit of muscle behind us now, certainly more than we did in the past. I suppose about myself, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I was born in Jamaica, but grew up at Jurrnee. So that's that. And I guess the sort of reptilian brain in me is my physicist self, that I was a physicist at one point in my life. And I suppose that's the animal that still ticks away behind the eyes.
Thank you, Jason, so much for the introduction. Neville, are we down with BOP? Tell us a little bit about yourself, please, Neville.
Hi, okay, my name's Neville. I am Scottish, although you can't tell from my accent. I fled the cold and wet of the UK 17 years ago, and I've been living in Spain ever since, based in Madrid. I'm a hotelier. I started off as a waiter and worked my way up. So I've done everything in hotels that you could think of. And then I've been specializing in revenue management and distribution for the last 25 plus years. When I got to 25, I stopped counting. Yeah, now I'm working with Beonprice.
And right now you're speaking to us from Madrid, yeah?
I'm in Madrid, and actually it's raining.
Except you're being sheltered from the rain by those tall trees behind you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Neville. Marvin, I'm going to guess, I mean, it's a good guess, educated guess, that you're speaking to us from Zug in Switzerland.
No, incorrect. We actually, so with RoomPriceGenie, we actually started in Switzerland, but then we very quickly moved over to having offices all over the place. I'm in Mannheim, Germany. That's a little bit south of Frankfurt. And I would actually love to say that I like to wash dishes. If I do that now, my wife's going to force me to sleep on the couch because we also don't have a dishwasher at the moment. And yeah, I wish I had this patience as you do and enjoy the process.
Yeah, it's super relaxing. If you know, you know. That's all I can say. So Fulvio and I randomly talked about washing hands by dishes. And then there's a lady named Gianna Riviera who messaged me, who posted on LinkedIn during the week that she also is a person who likes to hand wash dishes one by one. So
I think if it were an option, I would also do it. But I don't have the other option at the moment. So what I actually do as a hobby is vegetable gardening and picking mushrooms at the moment. So I'm a mushroom picker and vegetable gardener during the night and helping hoteliers at daytime.
Very cool. I've seen lots of mushrooms the last couple of days on my walks around, different colors with little nibbles out. I guess the squirrels have a little taste, and then I'm guessing the mushrooms mustn't be too good because there's still just a couple of bites in there. But anyway, that's enough about the ice-breaking session, getting to know you, getting to relax and unwind. I think Marvin's probably going to get the award for the most relaxed because he's the one with a BrewDog beverage by his side. Cheers, Marvin.
Cheers.
Just my humble glass of water. Now, let's get into this. The format will be, I've got a question or something, sort of topic to share with you guys. I'd like a little brief response, let's say a minute each, and then we'll open it up for a more further discussion. So if we think about hoteliers as the haves and the have-nots, have being having an RMS, whether they have the RM culture behind it or not, that's up to debate. But those hoteliers that don't have an RMS, how big and how wide is that gap between the haves and the have-nots? I'm going to start with Jason. Jason, what do you think about that as an initial thought piece?
So I'm from outside the industry. I'm a technologist and a scientist originally. And when I entered this industry, I was absolutely shocked that people did not use any software platform to do what is essentially quantitative work. So the gap has always been big, I would say, between people who use a revenue platform of some sort and those who don't. And it's just dramatically widening because platforms like ours and the other guys on this call, crazily, these are only men. I don't know where all the sort of female technologists are in our industry, but come forward. Anyway, all of the platforms here are getting more capable with every passing day. And the human beings who are not using platforms like ours are sitting behind an Excel spreadsheet, not getting better. So I find it still insane to me that revenue platforms aren't widely adopted in this industry. And if you look at any adjacent industry, the expenditure on tech is much higher and the use of these kinds of platforms is much greater. So the stakes are way too high to be messing around with an Excel spreadsheet in the back office.
Yeah, I completely agree. Fulvio, what's your thoughts on the hotels having RMS technology or not having any RMS technology? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, because this hospitality is very diversified environment. So there are lots of hotels with different needs, and not all of them are aware about the goodness of the opportunity of having this. So I think also it's a problem of communication. Sometimes they're very they are very focused on other things, and they do not even consider the opportunity, the benefits of adding a new technology. So they
exactly. I think it's a little bit like that meme where the Stone Age or caveman, Stone Age man, has got pushing a wheelbarrow along with square wheels, and the person there with the round wheel saying, "Hey, what about this?" And they're saying, "We're too busy. We're too busy." I think that's a good analogy for how hoteliers think RMS tech will just waste too much time. But Alexander, what are your thoughts on the haves and the have-nots?
I think that, I mean, what Jason said here, I mean, is absolutely correct. This was also the reason why we came to the sort of the industry. I'm also coming from outside the industry. But I think also there's a reason why there was such a big of an influx during that time as well, was because of all of the sort of on-premise PMSs situated in these hotels. And so, to be very honest, taking sort of the hoteliers' perspective, they didn't have many options either to activate or make use of or utilize those kind of options they have today, like the ones like ours representing here. So, and we have seen, so that was around, I would say, I mean, it's clearly 2017, 2018, something like that. Something happened, and now the adoption rate is clearly there. And I think it's just the COVID period has just accelerated this adoption because of the pains of staff shortage and stuff like that that we have. So, but I absolutely agree. I mean, there's a green field, and there is and that's where we come into the picture, I think, to educate, but also show, because it's a matter of hoteliers trusting what we deliver on this call,
we'll
right?
Get into it definitely in a lot more detail. So, Marvin, what are your thoughts there on the haves and have-nots?
I think if you look at numbers, then at the moment you will see that around 50,000 properties in the world use revenue management solutions that allow you to automate your pricing decisions. Not all of them use the automation of it, but that's certainly the goal for all of us, to bring in more automation. So you'll see maybe we can discuss how many hotels there are, maybe 1.1, 1.3 million. That's sort of up for discussion what you define as a hotel, but you'll have less than 5% of properties using something that allows them to automate. But if we're being honest, then a revenue management system or a pricing automation system, if I actually push it into that direction, is something that everyone should have, because like Jason said it, this is not something that you do in an Excel sheet. That's not something that you do manually. That's really a machine's job. And one of the reasons why this is still the case today is, like Alex said, it was technologically not possible. Maybe another reason is that what we've built so far, the technology we've built so far, is technology for the top 5%. So my main question will be, what does technology look like that allows us to bring revenue management solutions or pricing automation solution to 80% of the market?
I think that's a really good question. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail. Neville, over to you.
I mean, you mentioned revenue management culture, but I don't think you can divorce the two. And what I think here is that there is still a division between those people who do revenue management in a rigorous methodical way and those who don't. And if in the group of those who do, a lot of those people are using tech, but they tend to be big chains initially. It's changing now. But there's still a big group of hotels who don't really do revenue management in a structured procedure way. And then if you say to them, hey, why aren't you using tech? They don't. It's not just you need to use tech, because I fully agree with everyone else. It's crazy not to use technology these days to do revenue management. But if you don't really understand why you need it or what it's for, then it's an investment that it's a hard sell internally, because revenue management systems require some investment. Yeah. So I still think, I mean, I worked for 11 years in a big chain before I joined Beonprice. And when I stepped outside our sort of ivory tower and saw what the situation was in the market, I was quite surprised, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I could argue both for and against what you were saying there in terms of revenue culture needs to be there. And this is now open slather, guys. This is a free-for-all section where we can jump in. I want to say that I could argue for our RMS technology being able to be in place, even if there is no RM culture. For example, and I honestly have never ever seen a demo of Atomize, but if Atomize is, and I think Pace has the same ideology, fully automated forecasting, optimization, and pricing. If a hotel truly invests and gives over their technology to a fully automated system, then I believe there doesn't need to be a culture there, right? But the argument would then be the quality of the output, or the outputs are only as good as the inputs. So anybody wants to pick it up?
But I would say there's the phrase I prefer to use actually is performance culture, because revenue culture is kind of the how. What you really want is performance at the end of the day, whether it's profitability, whether it's market share. We should be driving the industry to focus on measurable performance. And that should pervade not just the revenue team, right? It should be across the board. We're running businesses here. Clearly, guest experience and making sure we delight our guests is an important part of that. But the performance of our businesses are super important. They're critical to the survivability and growth of our industry. And we are a part of that. So automation's a part of that. Data-driven decision-making is actually what we are, as an organization, really trying to drive our customers towards. And part of that is, obviously automation. Part of it is basically just having the right data together. And I know we're having a business intelligence conversation later on this week that should bring in some of that.
Yeah,
the performance culture.
I think the performance culture is key. And one thing that I always remember from my times with Ideas, for example, when I was working with them for a couple of years back in 2010, was forecast accuracy. We used to, this was a G2, version 2, generation 2 of Ideas. And the hotels will always be asking about forecast accuracy. And the measure, or the yardstick that they were using to beat you around the head if you were selling an RMS solution, as I was doing back then, was at the beginning of the month, what was the forecast for the end of the month? And and you have some revenue managers, definitely they won't be named because I can't even remember them, who would sandbag and just try and get to 72 point whatever percent at the end of the month because they were measured on forecast accuracy. That's a different thing than from performance, right? It seems ridiculous. Neville.
I mean, I agree with you, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit. In traditional revenue management, and I teach revenue management in some universities, the forecast is the basis for your decision making. So traditionally, you make a forecast, you try and make your forecast as accurate as possible, and on the basis of your forecast, you take decisions. They might be pricing decisions, they might be decisions about restrictions, there might be decisions about accounts, or about distribution, et cetera, et cetera. So a traditional revenue manager would say, if my forecast isn't accurate, then the decisions I'm going to make are also not going to be optimal. I kind of think we've gone beyond that now. So I do agree with you, but I think those people who are saying to you, how accurate is the forecast, is because the forecast should be the optimal amount of money that you can make in a period according to the data that you have. So again, I say I'm being devil's advocate, but that's the traditional revenue management point of view. I do think we need to go beyond that these days, but that would be the thinking, I think.
Yeah, Marvin, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons why the penetration rate in our industry for stuff that we do is so low is because of the complexity that we put onto this topic. So if you look into the industry, I would say that maybe 80% of hotels have less than 80 rooms. And out of those 80% of hotels that have less than 80 rooms, I would confidently say that maybe 10, if even 10% of those hotels work with forecasting or do anything in terms of pricing. So that's one of the issues that we have in our industry. We're sitting in our ivory towers, building very complicated solutions with very complicated explanations that are super fancy and super crazy, but they're just like totally missing the market. So the people that we speak with, so most of the hotels that we onboard are people that haven't ever used a revenue management system before. And those are actually the ones that need it the most, because those are the ones that have, 40 rooms. They might be doing an awesome job, but tech is maybe not their thing. So they won't be the guys sitting behind a laptop for 4 hours a day looking at dashboards, charts, and blah, 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 blah. So I think what we need to think of is what's really a first step to bringing revenue management to the industry. And if you look at Ideas, because Eric, you mentioned it, Ideas has done an insane job 15 years ago opening up this market on the top level of hotels for technology. I mean, insane what they've done in education for that space.
Thank you.
Our job at RoomPriceGenie is to think of
all
how does it look like.
Thank you.
Yeah, Eric, great job. No, but now our question, the question that we ask ourselves at RoomPriceGenie is how can we duplicate that for the rest of 80% of the market that's maybe never going to be as sophisticated as that?
Yeah, Alex, I think you're definitely a proponent for the fully automated optimization. However, my question would then be, my added question would be then, are you then not limited or empowered by the quality of your data input?
Definitely, that is the case. And I think we have all seen that the hotels starting to realize that what they're sitting on is a treasury if you maintain it, right? In terms of how you structure your data, because whatever going in, it's gonna affect your way to do forecasting, the way you're gonna perform overall. But also, I just want to comment on what Marvin said as well regarding forecasting. And my belief, what I've seen is that historically, forecasts have been sort of the holy grail to hit, as you said also, Eric, right? And the reason because of this is because everyone has, and if you see how RMSs in general or revenue management has been doing forecasts, has been building it on historical data, right? And as soon as the history is not repeating itself, the forecasts are wrong. And then everyone is running around as crazy. And this is what I think is so important, that forecasts shouldn't be sort of what you should aim for, because both performance-wise, but also it's a snapshot picture of the best guess, right? And there you can take that later, that discussion, but for that you need to look into the future, what's expected to happen in the future. And there we have everything with the forward-looking data and stuff like that changes in the market and stuff like that needs to be considered in order to do an accurate forecast in this snapshot picture window right now.
Yes, and Fulvio.
But maybe just, if I may interrupt for a second, Eric. I mean, I think one of the points you raise is about data quality, but I would challenge that in that, if, platforms like ours are seeing poor data quality, the human being who would be doing the job would also be looking at pretty poor data as well. True. It's not like, the human being has some, perfect gift of omnipotence to see the.
When I say data quality, I'm more referring to a broad spectrum of data. For example, flight demand data, yes. Hotel pricing data. So Fulvio, what's your opinion in terms of, we've moved this a little bit towards not just the haves and the have-nots, but fully automated versus human input? What are your thoughts there?
I would like to add something to the previous part. I mean, as you know, we in Zucchetti work with a lot of kind of companies in many industries, and in restaurant we provide technology to more than 400,000 restaurants and so on. So, but the thing is that I see the same pattern in all those small industries. I mean, small because most of these retailers are small, are not companies. They are not performed oriented. All those things, they're managed by families, and they don't know. They really don't know how the benefits, as I was explained before, of having additional software, because for them is additional software means more time to spend to follow this software. And when we talk about revenue management, there is not only one revenue management methodology. It could be strange, but if it's very complex revenue management. But as very small hotels, for them, revenue management probably is just a small thing. For others, for big companies, revenue management is more complex, means analyze tons of data, forecast, having precise forecast because they have many segments. Then there are small hotels, they just need a small part of this revenue management, even if the methodology can be the same, but they need a part. So it's impossible to sell or try to explain revenue management methodology to all of them. We should understand before the targets, and we will see that each of them is different, with different needs. And because most of the time we see from our point of view their needs, so we think that they need a focus, they need this, they need the other, but probably not.
Yeah, I think that's.
I would buy you a red wine for that statement.
I think it's perfectly clear that most hotels are still not using RMS tech. I'm going to use Marvin's numbers. I think 50,000 is a bit low, but let's just use it. 50,000 over 1 million. I needed to go to the calculator. That represents just 0.05% penetration. And so there are all different types of hotels, no doubt.
Should be 5%. Okay. And the 50,000, the number comes from a Skift report from 2019, where the number was 30,000, and I just estimated upwards. So 50 should be roughly correct if you exclude stuff like Expedia Plus, which I wouldn't technically count as revenue.
It's a really, really low penetration rate. And so what I wanted to ask you all today was, what about strategies? We've talked about technology, we've talked about data sets, different types of properties, but what strategies can hoteliers implement to increase the number of direct bookings or apply around the technology piece? Who wants to take this one?
I can start. What we usually see is the biggest hurdle is doing something, at least for the client base that we're dealing with. So less than 100 rooms, if you keep it at that. Doing something is the biggest hurdle. And then the best way to start, if you dive into revenue management, is really pricing automation. So using data to help you or to even fully do the pricing for you. And that's what we see has the biggest initial effect. So we at RoomPriceGenie, because we've had this discussion, we didn't even have reporting functionalities for a long time, because what our client base was caring about, that's sort of what Flavia says, they just want to get the job done. They wanted to have pricing where they understand why the algorithm does what it does, and then they just want to automate it. They log in once a week, maybe they do some manual changes, but because you start from nothing and go to 80% of the job, you're already far ahead.
Yeah. And Neville, what about specifically profitability? What can hoteliers do in that area?
I mean, I think it's interesting because obviously, as Marvin mentioned, pricing is the thing that has the biggest impact on your profitability, normally because your bedrooms have very, very high margin. But hotels, and this goes back to what Fulvio was saying as well, hotels are not all the same. It's not the same a 50-bedroom boutique hotel in the center of London than it is a 400-bedroom MICE hotel in Frankfurt, for example. So, but I've managed hotels where 30-40% of the revenues doesn't come from rooms. And I think we really need to start moving beyond just thinking about pricing strategy. And I think this is happening already, but I think revenue management is evolving towards profit management. And I think you really need to think about, firstly, what revenue streams do you have in your property? How are you optimizing those revenue streams? And you might not be optimizing all of them. And whether your strategies for each of the revenue streams then fit together. Because at the end of the day, you're managing all of your business, or you should be, not just part of it. And then there's another level to add on to that, which is revenue management. Traditionally, we optimize the top line, but we need to start thinking about the bottom line. And I think this has become more apparent in the last 2 or 3 years. We need to be thinking about costs. We need to be thinking about distribution costs. That's a very basic thing. But I think revenue management needs to move into that area and really start thinking about profitability of the whole of the customer life cycle.
Yeah, Jason, what's your take on profitability or the ability for hoteliers to actually differentiate themselves? Is that the job of the RMS or someone else's job in marketing?
Well, I'll start with the sort of bigger picture for us, which is the old Peter Drucker saying that you can't manage what you don't measure. And so, you have to be measuring profitability. You have to be measuring the impact you have on profitability. What Neville said is correct. Profitability actually has 2 influences, right? Cost and revenue. And we find teams that sometimes are very heavily focused on cost, right? principally when it comes to buying software, for example, and not thinking about the uplift in revenue and growth that that can drive. And others just focused on revenue, not thinking about channel costs, not thinking about, you know, other ways to use the inventory and so on. But it all has to step back to measuring. We have to have better measures of performance, and teams have to be focused on measuring these important KPIs, tracking them assiduously, and making sure that, you know, bonuses are driven towards that and incentives are aligned with that, actually, because it's just a standard block and tackle of running a business that I think people tend to leave by the wayside here.
Yeah, exactly. Fulvio, is it the job of the RMS to also help the hotelier have more direct business, more direct bookings, or is it just purely the output on price?
This is a tricky question. I mean, we should consider the demand. If the demand is related to the pricing, yes or no, it depends. I mean, if we consider the people looking for a destination, I mean, they want to go in a destination. After that, they consider the pricing. So you can attract part of those clients with the right pricing strategy, but not all the clients with the right price strategy, because otherwise they are not all the clients price sensitive. Even here, it's very important to consider different moment of this, because there are hotels that are in the city center with a lot of competition, so there the price is very important for them. The other kinds of hotels are just considered the streams of this topic. There are other hotels with a better value proposition, so for those hotels, pricing is less important. And in generally, yes, I can say yes to your question, but in a specific case.
Yes. And Alexander, do you have thoughts there on profitability, or is it just revenue?
No, I think without a doubt, I think that that we will see see solutions toward profitability or the next year. I think, and but I think the first it's a two-step tier or two-step rocket launch here. Sort of the first tier would be what Neville mentioned. I think we need to first of all master TRevPAR optimization, which means that we need to include the ancillary revenue streams and optimize towards that, and that will also, that's also, however, saying that means also it's a certain segment, auto segment, all those that are upscale sort of hotels, right, that have ancillary revenue streams. So it's in this segment will not be, or TRevPAR will not be attractive for 2-star and you know, 1, 2, 3-star maybe, but for the upscale hotels. And then after that would be profitability, where we need to master both channel costs and distribution, but also the actual cost of the hotel. So you know, not only which channels to close, right, if they're not unprofitable or not, but also when you shouldn't take a booking at all, because you know maybe it's not even worth selling the last room because of cleaning costs and stuff like that. So that's we're moving into that, I think, with light speed.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you think now is scalable this profit management tool? I mean, now you don't need only to be connected to a PMS. We are not talking about the top PMSs, but normal PMSs on the average. So there is a PMS, there is inventory management tool, which for the invoicing. There is another tool to get other data for the costs. So we should, on average, let's say, be connected to four softwares. And those are the other three. So the PMS is okay now. No? Let's say that we are good in a good moment now in terms of integrations. But for the other ones, believe me, we are very 20 years ago. It will be very. I see this in the next 20 years probably, if we consider the time we needed to approach all the PMSs in the right way.
Yeah,
probably less. I mean, where's the worst scenario?
Yeah, I think if someone was building a PMS today or in the last 2 or 3 years, you certainly would architect with that in mind, as every component that relates to costs or revenues and costs should be open and exposable via APIs. But the reality is no PMS is built that way. So it's not scalable today. It's like the weakest link in the chain or the slowest cog in the network situation. But I want to share with you guys a quick anecdote, which I think I mentioned. No, I definitely did mention it in a podcast. That was a meeting that I had way back 2014-ish with Booking.com, the guy in charge of pricing. And the topic was revenue management. And he was saying that, if all the hotels in a certain city would just give us all of their inventory to price, we would fill that city at the highest ADR for every property involved. And what he was talking about was the data that they have, and they could see the demand. And then what happens 2 or 1.5 weeks before a peak night, the hotels start closing down Booking.com. And then, of course, the demand slows down. And then what happens the last few days, they open their inventory again because the hotels weren't filling the way they thought they would. And they see this over and over and over again. So is that not a testimony to the idea that a tourism organization or the government in the tourism segment in some destinations should, if they're really doing the best by their member hotels, say, look, you guys should all use brand X or brand Y or brand Z of an RMS because we will all win? Or does that go against the Competition and Fair Trade Commission or whoever?
Well, I think forget competition and fair trade. I think it just goes against the idea of Schumpeter and creative destruction. We need to have a kind of a marketplace of ideas and have the best one win. That's why our mantra has always been performance. There'll certainly be scenarios where another revenue system may be better than our revenue operating system. But that should be the game we're playing here, right? We should be focused on driving the best performance, and whoever can do that should win the day.
Yeah, survival of the fittest and evolution. I'm all for that. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And the ideas, and again, this kind of marketplace of ideas only makes each of us better. Yeah. Right? Like the fact that there is competition in this market is a good thing. Like we would not want to be in a market where it's like dull, sleepy old competitors. We want active competition because it drives better performance out of us as well.
Yeah, I mentioned destination management companies or government bodies specifically because their competitor is like Booking.com or Expedia. Booking are better at selling Gothenburg than the Gothenburg Visitors Bureau. Is that correct, Alexander?
Yeah, probably so. Scary, but true.
Yeah. So anyway,
but does that really matter? I don't think it matters.
You're right. It only really matters as an intellectual discussion, not in practicality.
I mean, it's very interesting what you said about Booking.com because then they tried that because they offered an RMS to hotels and hotels didn't trust them and it didn't work. So it's an interesting discussion, but the
underlying assumption was correct, wasn't it? The underlying assumption was we could help hotels using our data to get better prices. The problem was that they maybe overestimated how much the hotels like Booking.com at that point in time, or in general, kind of discussed.
Also the process. They underestimated how difficult it can be to have the new process in a big company like Booking.com.
Yeah. But one of the big issues we have as a sector is the high customer acquisition cost that we have. It's very expensive for hotels to acquire new customers. It's much more expensive than for airlines or for car hire firms, for example. And also we have very low repeat business. And if you're in an urban destination, you can obviously, there are strategies you can use to increase your repeat business and make your customers more loyal. But the reality is most customers are going to come once or twice every few years. It's not the same in leisure properties, I don't think. So
yeah, I think I agree with you, Neville, but I think it's also back to Jason's point about the survival of the fittest. Hotels, all they really need to do, it's a simple business, is look after your guests, under promise and over deliver, consistently and predictably wow every single guest that comes through your front door. That's all you have to do. Now, if you're working at the front desk and your head is like this, because you have to try to do this check-in process and all of a sudden there's a guest in front of you and you're like, body language is saying, why are you breaking my concentration? I've got to update these registration cards. There are so many zero moments of truth in the guest journey that the hotel fails on. And I I say that as a former hotelier who has also delivered poor service in the past because of other distractions or who knows whatever. But I think that really the hotelier, if they just looked after the guest, business is easy, and they will generally accrue more loyalty and positive word of mouth. But technology gets in the way, lack of training gets in the way, and I think it's a shame that hoteliers are stuck in that rut sometimes, where they don't even realize how simple the business could be because they're distracted by an AM checklist and a PM checklist of all the different things they need to do. And by the way, smile at the guest like you mean it should also be on that list as well.
But what are we doing wrong as an industry if we say technology is in the way? Then we should very much criticize ourselves, because I fully agree with you. As an hotelier, your job is to make guests happy. Your job is not to sit behind a computer and not to fill in forms. But we should enable.
The properties that have no staff at all, like it's all guest-driven apps, they're the ones that I think are in a strong position, because essentially the real estate asset is treated as such. They're optimizing their asset value by reducing costs and still delivering what we call limited service. But I've stayed at some properties in Finland, in Helsinki, the Omnia, is that Omnia? No, Omena, I forget the name now. But it was a little bit of a clunky check-in, and the key didn't quite get dispensed correctly. But it finally worked. And of course, the price point for that room and the cleanliness of it was fantastic. So I think that I'm not advocating for staffless hotels, but I think the technology that has been introduced during the pandemic towards touchless hospitality or guest-driven, I think will support greater profitability of hotels and ultimately a better service for the guest and a better experience for the staff members. They don't have to worry about check-in and check-out checklists like that.
But I think that comes to the point of basically getting rid of busy work, because that's what you've been describing, right? Like people messing around with checklists and so forth. That's busy work. That is something you can automate.
Yeah.
What you should be focusing on is what the human being does best, which is welcoming a guest, engaging with a customer, and then thinking about long-term strategy, right? That's something that, basically automated systems still aren't great at. So thinking about long-term strategies really got to be key to what revenue managers, the human revenue managers anyway, should think of as their job. Yes. And getting rid of the busy work. Don't embrace the busy work. Like doing busy work is not job security.
No, absolutely. Now, for our final question for today, I'll start with you, Alex. What will the revenue management software landscape look like in the next 5 years?
I think that, so I think that there will be consolidation. That is maybe that's not so, I think that there will need to be consolidation of different sorts.
Oracle Hospitality don't have an RMS.
Exactly. And we have other
PMS. RMS.
Yeah, PMS players and others, and other players, not only PMS stakeholders, but others that are scouting, that we know are scouting around and are looking now what's the next move. Yes. And we have those kind of providers already in the market that are taking these positions, and they are not complete yet. So I think that in order to, there will be more complete offerings as such. And then there will be always those niche players playing in between these bigger consolidated platform offerings as well, always, and taking market shares from the bigger ones as well. And yes. But I think we see a true sign of that this is happening as we speak.
And Fulvio, what do you think the RMS landscape will look like in the next 5 years? 20?
Yes, there's a lot of time in technology also.
True.
A lot of years also for us. I would say that probably there will be a new generation of hoteliers coming, and the adoption of those kind of technology will increase for sure, because that's the key point. Because also now we know better how to explain the benefits of the revenue management. The culture is increasing, so I think that now we are in the right path. Also, the connection will be. All the PMSs now, at least the ones that I know, are trying to move from on-premise to cloud. So I think there are all the ingredients for a good future.
Yes. before I jump to Jason, if anyone out there has a question for the panelists here or for myself, or just wants to say hello, let us know where you're watching from today. We'll be happy to answer your questions after this next question. So Jason, next 5 years, how does it look like from your perspective?
I feel like I'm on a job interview. Where do you see yourself, candidate, in the next 5 years? Will you have my job? No, but seriously, I think revenue managers have an incredible opportunity ahead of them. They have the opportunity to become the center of data-driven decision-making in their organization. And that will drive efficiencies, not just in the revenue team, but potentially marketing, finance, operations. I think revenue managers have this opportunity to be the center of those decision-making nexi. And ultimately, I think there will be systems built to deliver on that promise. So yes. I think there's real incredible opportunity to be the sort of heart of data science, heart of decision-making, centered in the hands of this revenue management community that we're lucky enough to serve.
Yeah, I completely agree. The commercial director of the hotel of the future is really where I think revenue managers will aspire to go to. And Neville, I think you probably have a similar point of view, no?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I mean, I mentioned this before, and I'm not sure if it's going to be in 5 years, but I think we need to move towards a position where we have a profit management team. And actually, I know there is one chain in the Nordics which already has this. I can't remember which one it is right now.
Nordic Choice.
Nordic Choice, okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, in order to do this, then revenue management systems have to evolve. And I see this moving towards more of a platform where you have different pieces of technology for different parts of your business, but that these are all based on one platform. This could potentially take away connectivity nightmares, which everyone has right now. And this would enable you to have an overview of the profitability of your business in general. And whether this is revenue management, I mean, I think Jason mentioned this, there's a great opportunity for somebody to grab this. And why shouldn't it be the people who are doing revenue management right now? Because it's a new position, it's an emerging position. It's transversal. At the moment, it's not really been grabbed hold of by anyone. And I think there's a huge opportunity there to create this new role and obviously to maximize really your profits and your income holistically, which is definitely not something that's done today.
Agreed. Marvin, how are those brew dogs going down? What's the next 5 years looking like after one or two cans down the neck? How's the future looking now?
I think if you look at how technology penetration works in the hospitality industry, then we've seen slow and then suddenly very quick penetration of cloud PMSs. So now we're at the point where a lot of hotels already use cloud PMSs. If you look at what happened to channel managers, you had some early movers like SiteMinder that got into that space. And then now I would say most of the hotels that run a serious business have a channel manager, or at least sell on channels and that sort of conditions that you need a channel manager at one point in time. And I think the same will happen with revenue management systems or with pricing automation solutions, because that's really the technology that will make you more money than it costs. Most of the other technologies are expenses. This is a profit center. And if you look into the future in 5 years, what we will see is that more hotels will use pricing automations than hotels that will not use pricing automation. It will become a must-have rather than a nice-to-have. That forces the top market players that are serving the top 5% to develop their technology into something very much more sophisticated so they can still stay ahead. But if you look at the long tail of hospitality, if you don't have an automated pricing solution in place, you will just consistently lose in the market. So the more people use an RMS, the more people will need to use an RMS. That's sort of the logic behind it.
Excellent. Thank you, Marvin. Guess what? We've got questions from the audience.
And Eric, if I may just interject with one point before we go there, and this is maybe Neville will resonate with this point. We've spoken about where the systems will go in the next 5 years, but I think it's equally, if not more important, to talk about where the people will go, because revenue managers need to develop new skills. In order to capture this incredible opportunity ahead of this community, we need to develop new skills of data science and data-driven thinking. Some of the best teams we serve are adding data scientists to the revenue team, people with no hospitality background, but the ability to build pivot tables, build new analytics on our platforms and others. And I think that's really important for everyone in the community to absorb.
Cool, thank you for that, Jason. So we've got a comment and a question. The comment first comes from Ralph Mellis from Explore Tech. It's like Hotel Tech Report, but a way better version, focusing on the Middle East and Africa for now. No bias at all. Hey, Ralph, mate of mine. He basically is making a comment about the previous question when I spoke about destinations, etc. He's saying that legislators, I guess governments, only benefit if there are fees coming in directly related to the ADR of the hotel. In Dubai, for example, there's a percentage of the service charge, which is applicable to the room rate, and the Dubai government directly would benefit from the uplift of rates in the city in general. So he's making a comment that, you know what, in somewhere like UAE or Dubai, it's in the government's interest that every hotel uses an RMS. I'm not talking about which RMS, but actually uses RMS technology to increase ADRs. Now we have a question. I think this is from RoPA GC. The question is, please share best payment low-cost software / platform for hoteliers that can be integrated to Opera. In brackets, maybe suggest that they reach out to one of our panelists. Oh, okay. I think someone wants to know which is the best product for Opera. All of these ones. Everyone here on the panel offers a free trial, so try before you buy. That's my answer. Ideally automated online without the need for manual PDQs. I'm not sure what that actually means, but do we have any more questions? If you do have questions, please jump in. I've really enjoyed this panel discussion this afternoon, and that's even without any alcohol. I'm literally drinking still water, and it's still only 5 minutes to 5 for my time. So I'm going to open the floor to anybody who would like to say anything that maybe you didn't get to elaborate on earlier, or that you'd like to expand upon.
I think all of us have a shared responsibility to ensure that hotels perform better. So like you said it earlier, right now, technology for some is somewhat of a scary thing. We're always talking about those few hotels that use sophisticated tech already, but there are so many, even large hotels chains that are not there yet. And they actually need very sophisticated solutions, because maybe they even have teams today. And it's our job as a revenue management team Brewdog here, as a revenue management crew, to educate more, to be out there more, and to take the fears of automation away. I mean, I fully understand a hotelier that says, oh, you want to mess with my pricing? That's like my holy grail that I have.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing that you have in your hotel is your room prices. And our job is to create more trust. And I think that's going to be a fun challenge over the next few years.
Yeah. Thank you, Marvin. We have another question, but before that question, I have a question, or it's kind of a statement. Maybe it's a question as well. I don't know. Now, the question is, this is me personally. I see RMS as only a 120-degree solution, not a 180, a 120-degree solution. The 360 degrees is sales, marketing, and revenue. Those three components form the 360. Do you guys have sales and marketing in the future, or that's someone else's job? Because in my opinion, an RMS, I'm collectively saying all RMSs are effectively only a third of the optimal process that I see, to a cyclical processing of market demand creation, price optimization, and sales conversion. Anybody?
Well, you've heard me talk sorry, I've been talking a lot. Please go ahead.
Go Alexander, and then Jason.
Thanks. No, but I think this is where the consolidation piece comes into play, right? Because I think it's very important still that you need to be an expert in your specific field. So if any of us here would all of a sudden say that we know how to do the best marketing platform as well, it would be difficult. However, I think that the revenue management systems have a very tight responsibility in the marketing effort, because we can give a clear picture of when you should activate marketing and to what extent, on what channel, and stuff like that, right? So that signal should come from the revenue management system. But how to allocate, at what extent to make most effective pay sort of that budget is up to the marketing platform. But this is why I think consolidation is going to happen for that single reason. That the role will span over so many areas. The revenue manager will be much more commercial, and that means that it will need more platforms to execute that role, right? And so it becomes financial.
I think Anders Johansson from Demand Calendar would probably agree with you as well.
Yeah, I think so too.
Jason, did you want to say something?
I mean, we are building a platform for data-driven decision making. That's what we are at our core. There are data-driven decisions to be made in all of the areas you've described, right?
Perfect.
Us as a business do it ourselves, right? We spend money on marketing, we spend money on sales.
Yes.
So we are spending money on sales automation systems, on marketing automation systems, all to drive better decision making in each of these areas. Our customers should be too.
Good. Well, we've got more questions now. This question is from Uwe Gundlach. Hey, Uwe, moin moin. Why do hotels see RMS as a cost, not as an investment? What, based on your experience and feedback? Anybody?
Because nobody's been able to give them the output.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's quite simple, actually. I think nobody's been able to give them the quantitative output, right? Everyone points to performance, but no one is able to say, here's the evidence of the uplift we provided. Here's, in full detail, the analysis we've done to show that. So basically, I think because there's this lack of transparency in the actual value, a lot of people just think it's a checkbox. Oh, I'm doing revenue management, check. Like, well, how well are you doing it? Like, how well is the system performing? How well are the human beings that are doing revenue management are performing?
Neville?
I think this is very interesting because it takes us back to your first question and the conversation we had at the beginning. And we talked a lot about, or I talked about revenue management culture, and we talked about, but there is also a fact that, and we're all vendors of RMSs here, we need to demonstrate to people that our technology is going to add value. And it's going to add value and increase your performance. And even if you are the most old-fashioned profile in the world, if you are convinced that you're going to spend some money on something that's going to make you more money, being very, very basic, then you're going to do it. So I think we have a responsibility to demonstrate to people the value that we can add to their business. And it's not that easy, but it can be done. So
yeah, what's that expression? A rising tide floats all ships. If the entire market's going well, is it because of your RMS or lack of an RMS? But anyway, question from Walid Ahmed. This could be going against the flow, but where is the guest in all of this? Remember, this is a viewer, somebody watching our discussion right now. They're saying, hang on, where's the guest in all of this? Could quality maximization be included in RMSs in the future? Fantastic question, Walid Ahmed. Yeah. Who wants to answer that? Neville.
I know I've been talking a lot. We already include this in our algorithm.
Is it the BOQ?
HQI, Hotel Quality Index. And I know that we're not here to sell our products today, but we have an index where we take into account your online reputation plus your physical product.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable. You're answering a direct question, so unless Walid is an employee of Beonprice, I think it's a fair question.
He's in my kitchen right now. No.
Exactly.
We have taken this into account in our algorithm, in our pricing recommendations from the very beginning, because I think revenue managers have always looked at, I mean, we live in a market, we look at market pricing, and we look at quality, but we have never done it in a very scientific way. But it's undeniable that this has an impact on your pricing. So if you're not meeting the promise that you make when they make a booking, those customers are going to be unhappy. And if those customers are unhappy, it's going to have an impact on your future pricing. So it's something that we believe is important in terms of.
Questions are coming in thick and fast. Literally, I have to scroll back Now, this question.
Just one comment, Eric, before we just.
Yes, Alexander.
That is regarding review scoring and quality and stuff like that, because I think that's very important. So we have made a study where we show that a half a point from a score 0 to 10 on a 0 to 10 scale on a review will shift your pricing by 15%. So it's a huge price point by 15%. So for every 0.5% review scoring higher, so that relationship I think is quite significant. It is very, related to this initial question. It's very interesting.
Okay, thank you very much, Alexander. Another question from somebody's called Plan B Ever Have. RMS are always focused on rooms and ADR. Is there any chance to consider food and beverage and recreation facilities prices as well to uplift the profit of the hotels so that the investment deserve the cost? I think the question is basically outside of room revenue, what about F&B and facilities?
Absolutely. Watch this space.
Jason, don't you do jet skis?
Say again.
Sorry?
Don't you also price jet skis at some properties?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Boat slips, actually. We do boat slips. But watch this space for more food and beverage, non-room revenues.
We have a question from a guy named David Lamelas. I actually know David. He works for Roomer, who's a Portuguese RMS. So let's see what the Portuguese RMS question is. What do the 80% of hotels that don't have an RMS need in terms of features to see and see how important it is to have an RMS? How do you make those who want to have an RMS? What minimum features do they need? I guess he's asking for what's the bare minimum, let's say MVP of an RMS that will get the foot in the door for even the most skeptical hotel. I'd say RPG. You guys, I think you specialize in our kettle properties, no?
Yeah, so we work with around 1,000 properties now, and most of them don't come from anything. So it's really about what's this minimum product that you need to deliver for creating trust. And what we see is it's important to just make the journey of trying something very simple. So making integrations simple, making onboarding simple, showing price recommendations after 2 days of them having a demo, or sometimes even much quicker, depending on the integration that you work with. So they just want to see something. And then it's about transparency on what the algorithm did. They want to understand something. And as soon as you have this feeling of, okay, I see where I'm missing out. I didn't see this trade show that's going on in March. And I see that the market is 60% higher. I should be moving because I've already sold 50% of my rooms. Then as soon as you have that, as soon as you help them understand where they're missing out, you'll catch them.
Yes, and thank you for that. David corrected me. He works for Climber RMS, not Roomer. Roomer is a PMS from the Netherlands. Climber is an RMS from Portugal. Thank you for correcting us, David. I hope you got value out of Marvin's answer there in terms of full transparency is the key. So if you are showing increases of revenue or increases already on ADR, you can actually point to specific examples of including your system and excluding your system. So unless we have a few more questions, we have one more. We have one more, okay. And then we'll wrap it up. The question basically is relating to the 50,000 hoteliers out of an addressable market of 1 million, okay? Do we feel as a collective audience here, do we feel that the next generation of hoteliers who come through will rapidly increase the uptake of RMS tech versus older operators? Because it'll just be expected?
No question about that. I mean, there's, people are using iPhones to check their email and be on Snapchat and TikTok. And they would be using like an Excel spreadsheet to revenue manage. I think there's some dissonance that's going to be broken quite soon, this next generation of hoteliers. Speaking of which, I have to apologize about the background noise. I'm at a hotel and the evening entertainment has just started. So you probably hear some singing and dancing in the background. That's not me, unfortunately.
Okay, well, I wish I was there, but I actually can't hear a thing. But I'm going to ask you guys, let's go from alphabetical order with Alexander first. Yep. You have a minute just for some final thoughts on what we've discussed today or anything else you'd like to share.
I think that it would be interesting to what we haven't discussed is how fast the market is moving today versus just a couple of years ago in terms of the dynamics and how because how much easier it makes the guest to book and so on and what I believe that everything needs to go towards more real time as well and I think the real time element is underestimated in terms of how to be able to respond to that in the future. So I think that's, but it's a topic in itself, I think. But I think overall, the discussions here have been for me, very great to follow and hear everyone else, my dear industry colleagues to talk to. And
so Alex, I'll just pick you up on the real-time nature. With real-time, do you mean all the data inputs need to be real-time as well? And how do you decide what data is valid towards demand of a particular property? If it's a property next to a big airport, or it's a property in the mountains, or how do you view that?
I think everyone here is close to real time in terms of intake and influx of data, right? From depending on the limitation would be the PMS itself. But so I'm talking about how responsive the RMSs will need to be in order to respond to rapid demand fluctuations and so on. I think there we have been with the legacy RMSs have been and are still too slow. And I think we need to see that RMSs will need to be able to respond to, as you said, those at the airport, for instance, where demand can be fluctuating quite a bit, or in a very demand-centric sort of fluctuating city center hotel, for instance, where if you are too slow, you will sell out, before you are able to respond with the right prices and so on. And then it doesn't matter how well you're trying to set the rates if you're too slow, right? If you snooze, you lose, simply.
Exactly. By the way, David said, brilliant answer, Marvin. Thank you. I think he meant Marvin and also Jason. So you both responded to that. Loving this event. We want more. Winky emoji. Wow. Great. Our first emoji. Do you have any last sort of thoughts or reflections upon the discussions today?
Me? I hope that in 5 years there will be another, let's say, Zoom meeting like this with 50 competitors. So it means that the market really is very, very good, and our focus, because all of us is saying that more or less the same stuff, that the adoption will improve, and so that's all.
Thank you. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you all guys face to face for a coffee or tea, Neville. Whatever takes your fancy. Jason, what are your thoughts or reflections upon, let's say, any of the audience questions? I personally wish this was just audience question related. I would love that. If we were in a theater or a ballroom somewhere and the microphones with the audience, that's my dream. But any final thoughts, Jason?
Yes, with apologies for the salsa music going on in the background. Maybe it's the appropriate theme to my closing comments anyway. I'm incredibly optimistic about the future. I guess by nature, I'm an optimistic guy, being an entrepreneur, but I'm incredibly optimistic about the opportunity before all of our customers. So the revenue teams we serve have this incredible opportunity to take control of decision intelligence and decision-making in their organizations and really become heroes. And ultimately, this is my job. I serve these customers, and my job is to make them look amazing. And the way to do that is embrace technology, become data-driven in your decision-making, and absolutely become performance-driven and measure what you want to achieve.
Very well said. Very well said. Neville, any final passing thoughts?
I mean, I really echo what Jason says. I fully agree with him there. I think there's a huge opportunity for hotels right now. I think there's a huge opportunity for revenue managers to take the next step. And there's a huge opportunity for vendors like us, because as we discussed, there's a massive amount of hotels who would benefit from the kind of technology that we provide. So I'm also very optimistic, and the pace of evolution of the market in the last 2 years has been exponential, and I think that's going to continue. So I think, very positive outlook for the next few years.
Thank you, Neville. Marvin, how could you just have the one brew dog? Is it, you have another one?
I don't know. The fridge is too far away.
Okay, yes. And Marvin, I think it would be worthwhile if you wanted to maybe just highlight how smaller properties, first-time users of an RMS, differ from the bigger properties as a further detail on your previous question.
Yeah, I think what you will see is that the expected user experience differs massively. If you look at some general manager that also has to do pricing, or some sales manager that has a lot of different jobs, not just pricing, then they need something that's highly automated, where they trust, where they can strategically intervene with the operations. It's really down to the system. While when you're working with revenue management teams that need to dig down very deep into the data, that have the capacity to fine tune for the last few percent, they need a whole different product. I think that's sort of what this discussion today has shown us, that a revenue management system isn't a revenue management system. It's really this whole spectrum of what is possible. And I think everyone who's listening need to ask themselves the question, what do I really need? So am I spending hours behind an Excel sheet, and I want to spend those hours differently with more intelligence and outperforming my past self with better technology? Then there are solutions for that. If you actually know that you have to do the pricing, but you don't really ever have the time to do it, maybe you're not going to need something that just gives you the input on what to do, but you need something that automates everything for you in a way where you understand it, where you trust it. So I think that's where we see the world of revenue management go in general. It's something that everyone needs, but everyone needs something different.
Yes, thank you. And actually, that's a perfect segue to this very, very, very last question from Naveen Lear. It's a simple one. Well, I think it's a simple answer. Question from Naveen Lear. Regarding RMS solutions, are they relevant to a 254-bedroom hotel/resort with 3 buildings, spa, golf, and also put on very large and small events business? I'm going to say yes.
Want to make money?
Yeah.
Definitely. And Naveen, the reason I said it's an easy answer is because all of these suppliers here would most definitely be suitable for you. They all offer try before you buy. So I would encourage everybody, not just Naveen, but everybody who's watching here, either live or watching on recording. You can see our names are there on the Zoom display. We're on LinkedIn. If you add us on LinkedIn or message us from LinkedIn, and we see you're a hotelier, we're going to accept your invitation. I don't know if we're accepting every random invitation, but if it's a hotelier that wants to connect, we're there for you, and we'll be happy to speak to you offline as you see fit. And with that, I thank you all for participating from the viewing audience, and all my panelists, Alexander Edstrom from Atomize, Fulvio Giannetti from Lybra, Jason Pinto from Pace Revenue, Neville Isaac from Beonprice, and last but not least, Martin Spey from RPG, RoomPriceGenie. We're out.